I am Nolene. I am an earth sprite, emerged from Wood Road in Farncombe. My purpose is to encourage the earth heroes, the climate heroes who have existed since the dawn of time. Amoeba, moss, and many similar organisms. Human beings have spent more time on this planet in harmony with nature than we have dominating nature. We need to return to our hunter-gatherer feelings and our knowledge, and there are still humans all over the planet operating simply within planetary boundaries. They still live in the trees and eat nuts and take less than they put back. We can do this again. And to encourage you, this is my role. I have every bird who is my friend in the garden. Every bird cannot speak, but can play the bass and squawk. More from every bird later. But right now, let me tell you what Earth Heroes have come to us today. We have Claire Waiteman, the Nappy Lady. We have Cecilia Askham, all the way from Norsus, talking about Guru and herself and her wonderful practices. We have Anna Fosbury, the zero waste woman. Yes. And we have Danielle say it properly, Danielle, when it's your turn. And we have someone who lives in Wood Road who fancies himself as a bit of a hero. I'm not so sure. David Faraday shall be talking about his practices and how much it's cost or not cost. So, without further ado, Ms. Waiteman, are you ready? Yes. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much. I'm sure I can be brief. So I'm here from Godalming's Nappy, which is basically a peer-to-peer volunteer service currently run by me to encourage parents to choose reusable nappies as opposed to disposable nappies. I'm still attempting to share my screen. It's taking a very long time to come up. Right, there we go. So some of you might know or want to know what on earth is a nappy library. A nappy library is basically here to fill in the knowledge gap for parents that there exists about how to use reusable nappies. Everybody in the world used to use reusable nappies, also known as cloth nappies, up until the mid-1980s, at which point most people in the Western world switched to disposable nappies. What that means is that most parents simply don't know that they exist. I know as a recent parent that when you have a baby, no one in the NHS tells about cloth nappies as an option. Midwives don't, doctors don't, and so you simply don't consider them at all. And it's this is what we're trying to do, is to try and fill that knowledge gap. So I offer kits to loan for parents that are supported by Godalming Council. I'm very grateful to have received a grant from the Carbon Reduction Funds, which has allowed me to extend the kits. So again, thank you to Godalming Town Council. And basically, parents will approach me and borrow kits so that they can try before they buy. Some come when they are still expecting a baby and they borrow kits right from birth. And others may, because of this knowledge gap, only come along when their baby is several months old, and they will borrow a one-size kit. They have slightly different nappies in them. Why cloth nappies? Why reusable nappies? A lot of people say this to me. Well, why would you not use disposable? It's so convenient. They're so easy to use. You put them on your baby and you throw them away. Who wants to even think about that? And the answer is because disposable nappies are destroying the planet. One child will use 5,000 of them. That's 10,000 nappies if you have 2 children. And they cost a lot of money, which is, apart from the environmental consideration, is a social justice consideration for parents on low incomes. You're spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds that you have to do for every child that you have. If you reusable nappies with your first child, you will still have them for your second child, and so you will not have to buy any more nappies. There's another reason. The waste. One child will produce approximately a ton of waste. That's one child. There are 8 million disposable nappies thrown away in the UK every single day. 8 million a day. And then also this is an uncomfortable thing, and I have sometimes had parents get quite defensive about this. Disposable nappies are fueling the climate crisis, and there's no getting away from it because they're made out of oil, because they contain plastic. And so if you are using disposable nappies 100% of the time, you are encouraging more demand, and more demand means there's going to be more oil drilling. We can't actually sugarcoat that in any way, I'm afraid. They also are something that we all pay for. So even if you are not the nappy wearing household age group, which I can see some of you probably are, children have long since finished nappies, you are still paying for disposable nappies to be disposed of by the relevant waste disposal authority, because they make up 4% of the household waste for the entire UK population. And that's, aside from the dioxide emissions produced by them. Aside from plastic, they also, disposable nappies also contain very unsustainably made cellulose fluff, which is harvested from plantations that are very often grown on land where virgin forest has been cut down. And so people say, well, isn't that made from trees? It's like, well, yes, but you have to consider the tree plantation is not exactly like a sustainable natural wild forest. And to grow a tree for 18 years approximately of wood, to then harvest it, put it through an extremely chemically intensive process in order to produce cellulose pulp. I actually know quite a lot about how cellulose is made now, and I can assure you it's not an environmentally sustainable practice. To then produce a product that is going to be put on a baby, and I can assure you will be pooped in about 5 minutes later, that is a criminal waste of trees as far as I'm concerned. So that's another reason not to use disposable nappies. There was also a news article which you can find on the Guardian website that was published about 2 years ago. The French government did a random test of the chemicals that are found in disposable nappies about 2.5 years ago, and they detected glyphosate in babies' nappies. Now, I can tell you that babies' nappies are worn for approximately 2.5 years, and if you can imagine the amount of glyphosate that is going to be next to the skin of a baby, that is something that I really think that there should be more of a stink about. But of course, as you may remember, when Michael Gove inadvertently offended the Mumsnet Brigade a year ago, even sort of government ministers are very wary of upsetting mums by anything which may be, oh, we can't ban disposable nappies. Well, we don't have to ban them. We simply have to encourage other alternatives. A lot of people also tell me like, oh, but shouldn't modern mothers not have to worry about scrubbing and soaking, and isn't it a bit disgusting? It's like, well, I'm not some sort of reject from 1950s. I have to say, I don't, spend all my days sort of scrubbing nappies in a tub with a sort of a dolly. I have a washing machine. It's a wonderful invention. They're great because they take all the hard work out of it. So no, there's no scrubbing involved. We don't soak them the way that they were done years ago. My mother used to soak my terry nappies that I wore as a baby. We don't know that, encourage that now. There are other ways of washing them, and
Claire,
can come and speak more to me.
5 minutes is up, but just finished your point.
Very much, and thank you all for your patience, and thank you for listening.
Well, there is a moment or two if somebody would like to ask you a question. So if you would like to ask Claire a question, over to you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Nolene. It's very nice of you to introduce me and to ask me to be part of this. I'm a bit of a cheat in some ways, in that I work with environmental research every day. And so I know some really interesting people. And this lady, Guro, she's a climate superhero, I think. She and I used to work together, and she left the company I work for, Norsus, and started to work for an environmental organisation in Norway called Bellona. And then she went on to another one called Zero, which was working for zero climate emissions. So she's a very relevant person. She is slightly younger than me, and she's done lots of design work. This is her. She is now the person in charge of a project called Climate Østfold. So Climate Østfold was a region in the southeast of Norway, where the town I live in and she lives in is called Fredrikstad. And she now runs this Climate Østfold project, which is all the local municipalities and councils, and she advises them about how to meet their climate ambitions. So she's a very interesting person, and this website of hers, and you can see some links if you want, it's all in Norwegian though, so it's not particularly helpful for you guys, but I'll tell you a few things about what she does. So she's out and about talking about climate and what people can do in practice. She's also, this is some of the things that they've done in our local region. So they've made sure that there are charging points for electric vehicles. They've had a project and they put on their website how many there are in the region. So now there are 400 in our region. So it's really easy to drive an electric car. She's also put the number of biogas buses. So all the organic waste that comes from the sewage and food waste go to a local biogas plant, and then the buses run on that. So all the council buses in the town we live in and all the regions, there are 140 biogas run buses. So they are climate neutral. And then they have the biogas filling stations, which then make it easier for the buses to fill. And there are 4 of those in the region. So that's quite nice. Yes, and that I've translated a bit about what they are. There's 12 municipalities and councils that all work together. So the idea is this project links everyone and they can help each other and share ideas and come up with common projects that they all can get behind. So it's a really nice way of working together and engaging everyone. These are some of the examples, and again, it's in Norwegian, but just to read out to you, this is Guro in action again. Note she has some really cool second or vintage clothing, and all her accessories, all her earrings and everything is all vintage. So she's found it in the used shops. And she goes out and she holds presentations. She looks very glamorous, I think, which is not necessarily the main thing, but it's nice. And she has a lot of good things to say, obviously. And there's a local commune. They've done a leasing solution for electric bicycles for their employees. There is climate advice for purchasing, so public procurement. There is a test of fossil-free machines. So they have bought a load of heavy vehicles because people think that electric and biogas and stuff won't work for me. So the entrepreneurs locally can borrow a digger or a dumper truck that is running on electricity or biogas and see that it actually can work. So that is a low cost thing for them, but their project has bought in some of these vehicles so they can test them out. Also, there's farmers and lots of other things. So I think it's really good practical local stuff that they're doing that breaks down barriers, which I think is really nice. And in her personal life, I got her to send me some pictures from her home. This is the one with the light here. This is a light she and her partner Sindra have made from old milk pipes from a farm that was a dairy farm. So they've adapted the milk pipes to make a really cool lamp in their house. And she also has bought all secondhand furniture that they use in their home. So, and she has a very specific style she looks for, but she looks out for it and she chooses what she wants to have her style. So repair and reuse is her first choice when it comes to interior in her house and her clothes. She has lots of secondhand clothes, as I mentioned earlier, and vintage accessories and things. She's very keen on energy efficiency, and they've done lots of things around their home for that. And she cycles and uses the bus. And she's also done a thing about blogging, about how to do long journeys for work without taking an aeroplane, because she quite often does travel. And I thought that was really cool. So a couple of years ago, she was doing that already to try and get across Europe just on trains and things. So that's what I wanted to say about Guro. I think she's great.
Perfect. That was 5 minutes exactly. So now you have 5 for yourself. Ooh.
So me, what about me? So this is my family. The little girl pops up in all the pictures, but there's only one. We are a very sort of perhaps average family with 2 adults and 2 kids in the house. And here is a tent under the table, by the way. We made a tent under our dining table because the kids needed to get away and we couldn't go camping. Yeah, that was just a fun thing. But this is the family. We live in Norway and we like going for walks and things, as you can see. I put in this is because I do the research on environment. A lot of the things in the circles there are actually in Norwegian, but the ones I've translated, the ones you need to know. So the biggest circles there, they show the biggest impacts the average household in Norway has on the environment. So if you see, actually transport is the big red one, and then I don't know if your video pictures are covering it up, but then the other one is home, lights and fuel, and the last biggest one, as it were, is food and drink. And interestingly enough, the Norwegians have taken out alcoholic drinks in a different box, but that doesn't matter. They're quite restrictive on alcohol politics in Norway. That's another presentation. So I thought if I just use that as a guide for what we did around these areas. So with food, I try and make sure that the family, we have a menu thing going on because we're two adults that work full time, and we try and do a menu for the week, and then shop online at the moment because of Corona, but we get ordered our food, and we have at least 2 vegetarian dinners a week. I try and push it up, and there are others in the household that try and push it down, but I'm strict on that. On transport, I was an early adopter of a hybrid car. There weren't at the time, when I was buying a car previously, there weren't electric vehicles that were more than 2-seater, and I had to have more than 2 seats, I'm afraid. So I had a hybrid, and then now we've got an electric. When we had the other one was falling apart, we got an electric. We have solar panels, so electricity and energy. Of course, in a country like Norway, where it's cold in the winter, heating of houses is quite a big thing. So we have solar panels, we have water-based underfloor heating, which a lot of people don't have in Norway. You know, you have radiators in the homes, most of us in England, but here they have electric panel ovens actually around the house, so it's quite inefficient for heating, I think. But we've done that, and we have a wood-burning stove, and we also have a heat pump. So we got some extra money last year because we weren't traveling, so we invested in a heat pump. So we thought we'd use that money as a good investment for something to reduce our electricity use. We also buy the electricity with guarantees of origin. So it stimulates investment in hydropower and wind power, renewables. So we think that's quite important. And when we do buy stuff, obviously we try and get used and that kind of thing. But in Norway, in the Nordic countries, we're lucky because we have this swan label that you see on the bottom. Where they label products that are better than average and the best in class. So that avoids using toxic chemicals, as well as the trying to be good on energy use and other things. So I really like that system, because when I go in the shops and I'm looking for something, if I want to know what the environmental choice is, if it's got that label, I know it's better than the product next to it, and that the companies involved are trying at least. So I find that's quite nice. I think you've got the EU flour in England, perhaps. It's a similar thing. And we also try ethical and fair trade, but I'm not as good as Dave at that, so I'll be interested to hear what he says about that later. Also, on the washable nappies front, I was a user of washable nappies. I was very lucky. I had a colleague, her children are in their 20s now. She was doing the washable nappies then, and they had this system that is popular in Norway, where it's the wool fat that keeps the moisture in. So it's all from the sheep's wool, and you wash the outer nappies, are these woolly ones you see here, and you put the wool fat into them, and that keeps the moisture in, and it breathes, and it's doesn't leak, and it's amazing. So I was a real convert. So I helped change nappies on her children, and she let me have all of her nappies when her children were bigger. And my oldest boy is now 13, and his sister used the same nappies, and we must have saved so much money. And then I passed those nappies on, that some of them more than 20 years old, to someone else who wanted to use them. So I found that I really liked that, and it's so nice that that ties in. And actually there are period products that are also washable. And some people might think that that's a bit frightening, but particularly in times like now, when you're home all the time, it's really easy to try it and give it a go. So I did that after the washable nappies thing. Oh, time, sorry.
That's your second time, so you can take a couple of minutes if anyone has a comment or a question for Cecilia. And thank you for coming all the way from Norway, almost zero carbon, with your beautiful face and your lovely slides and the elegant gro. So does anyone have a comment or question for Cecilia?
While you're thinking, I'll just add, this is what our house looks like at the moment, because it's snowing and the solar panels have got covered. but it slides off and it still produces in the winter.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept of zero waste. It doesn't mean absolutely no waste at all, but it's a concept that is becoming more and more popular about reducing the amount of waste you're creating, and in particular reducing the amount of single-use plastic. So as a concept, it's an approach to the problem rather than a perfect solution. And a lot of people have seen on the television, war against plastic, the sheer quantity of resources we're getting through for creating, like the nappies that Claire was talking about, is just mind-boggling. So this is what I'm going to talk about. Is a certain method of reducing the plastic waste that we're creating. I'm not perfect by any means. With my another hat on, I work for Waverley Borough Council in the waste and recycling team. And this is actually a concept I came up with for work to try to get my office more interested in reducing single-use plastic. And it took off quite well. So I decided to create my own. So this here, I'm just going to hold it up a little bit. This is a waste hierarchy. And this is concentrating on refusing an item first. Do you need an item? Reducing the amount you're having, reusing if you can, repairing, recycling, or leaving something to rot, so composting. So looking at all the ways you can process something before you actually put it in your rubbish bin. There is a great book by somebody called B. Johnson on zero waste home that you can look up other ideas, but basically let's get to the box. This is an idea that it's a conversation starter. So there are tangible triggers in here to sort of break the concept of zero waste out of the echo chamber, because everybody here has already got that interest. Everybody here says, yeah, I want to know more. This is intended to lend to community groups, local businesses, schools. I only just about launched it before the pandemic hit last year. It only got out to 1 or 2 borrowers. Come into that. It is a box. It opens up and it is full of all kinds of interesting stuff. So it's intended not to take up very much space, but to be full of tangible ideas for cutting down on zero waste. We have paper wrapped loo roll that gets delivered by the box. Not everybody likes the way that it's wrapped. They think, well, maybe we could have it unwrapped. There are options available. This particular one is made of bamboo rather than recycled paper, purely because it's a fast grower and it cuts down on tree wastage. Little nod to Claire here. There are nappies. So it's a way of broaching the idea of modern cloth nappies with people who may never have come across them before, and then they can be signposted to people like Claire and the NCT nappy library, and also the Surrey. There is a Surrey-wide scheme where usually we would lend out kits to Waverley Borough Council residents, but it's very hard at the moment with the pandemic. Things like reusable coffee cups, just the simple remembering to take a coffee cup out with you. This is a collapsible one. So all things like this, toothpaste tablets, shampoo bars, wraps. Hang on, let me angle it away from the light. These are wax wraps. It's a cotton fabric that's imbued with beeswax and pine resin and jojoba oil that you can form to cover over bowls in the fridge instead of using cling film, and it holds really well. and the oils that it's imbued with.
So Anna, that's
Help
your
prevent
first 5 minutes. So if you want to wrap that up at the moment, and then you can tell us about the recycling hero that you know.
Okay, I'm just going to pop those two up there so you can see. Hopefully, I am on Facebook and on Instagram, so you can have a look at that. Sorry, was that a question from you, Francis? Can you use them for sandwiches?
That was from Claire. I've answered it.
Okay.
Let's take your comments about David, and then I'll leave it for questions.
Okay.
Afterwards.
So just quickly, looking at that waste hierarchy, I showed about the recycling. There are other recycling schemes out there rather than what you can put in your blue bin at home. The blue bin can't take everything, unfortunately, because of the sorting process. Companies like TerraCycle, that you may or well have heard of, take a variety of other types of packaging and recycle them. There is usually at the Borough Hall in Godalming 3 deposit points for different types of recycling, for crisp packets, for dental products, and for and Pringles tubes. Great chap, the Borough Hall manager, David, has. And in normal times, you can go in, drop your products off there, and he sends them off to be recycled. They will. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, it's really good of him. He is a bit worried about being inundated when everything opens back up again. But if people do leave items outside the door, when the time he goes in, he has been taking those in with him and sending them off when he's able to. Cut him a little bit of slack when the Borough Hall opens. Don't all descend at once, but that resource is there, and there are other places across the borough and the local area as well.
Hello everyone. Yes, I got my camera working finally, thankfully, because I didn't have a PowerPoint. It would have been kind of boring otherwise. So I'm Danielle and this is Laura. Hello. And we run Yard Market, which is a zero waste shop in Godalming. So we opened up in the shop in October of 2018. For different makers, independent artists and stuff in the area. And after, I don't know, was it like 2 months, we were thinking, God, wouldn't it be amazing to have a zero waste shop around here? And we were waiting for somebody to open one up. And then we thought, well, hold on, we have a shop, but why don't we just do it? So I will take you over here and show you. At first, we just put it into a, let's see if I can turn this around. Can I turn around? No. We put it into this cabinet. We just took the door off and thought, okay, we'll put it in there. And then the Earth Conscious Corner was born. It became super popular immediately, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And now it takes up, I don't know, about half the shop. So it went from there, and we now have our soap corner, which has shampoo bars and body soap and everything that you could possibly need. They're all either unpackaged or eco-friendly packaging, such as aluminum tins that you can reuse, paper, all that kind of stuff. Then over here we've got some other options of reusable vegan leather snack bags. And then all behind here are all of our other different refills. We now have nearly everything in terms of cleaning, hair care, body care. What else?
Tooth tablets.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely everything except for food. We don't do food because the deli across the road does some refill food there. It's really, I think, I mean, it's going to sound a bit cheesy, but what really excites us is how in the beginning, it was kind of hard to find certain products that they just weren't around, and more they're being produced by people because the demand is there. And it's exciting to see that the world is moving along. Obviously, it's a scary time with everything happening, but people are waking up a little bit more. And the other thing is that we are really happy to say that it's not just a shop, it's kind of a movement. People, our customers are our friends. Every time they come in, we have discussions about the world, and it just feels like, I don't know, a little birthplace of ideas and relationships. So we're very happy to count ourselves as a community space for social and environmental activism for Godalming, and it makes me happy every day. So yeah. Oh, and I'll show you just a little bit more. I forgot about that. We have a lot of other new things, like our new sponges, which are sustainably sourced from Greece, and deodorant, toothpaste tabs, muscle oil, seriously, anything you could possibly imagine. And we love to hear from our customers about new things that are coming out, because we always like to, you know, keep things moving. So yeah. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic stuff. So what I'm going to talk about, it's been fantastic to hear all these things that everybody's doing. And I'm going to touch on a few of those, but sort of reinforce all of these different elements. But I'm going to bring up a question here, which is one that struck me. In 2012, Shirley and I decided to take a tack of trying to look at every aspect of our lives and what we do, and say, what can we do to be more ethical in our living to sustain the planet? And being an ex-academic and a bit of a data geek in that, I thought, well, I'm going to capture all the information about this and see what we do and what the changes are. But also, I figured it's going to cost me some money here, and I wanted to know how much it cost. And we may all argue that what is the cost to save the planet, and surely that should not be a consideration. But if we've got to get everybody on the planet to do this, there's huge numbers of people where actually cost is a really important factor. Families with children, and that it's a real issue. And so I wanted to really understand what it would actually mean to start being more and more ethical. So I'm going to say a bit about that as well. So I'm not going to, these are some of the things we did from 2012 onwards. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll touch on a few that maybe haven't come up yet, because a lot of them have been mentioned already. Taking our money away from unethical businesses and unethical practices was a big one. Stop shopping at supermarkets, boycott Amazon, boycott Nestle. Don't give our money to the organizations that are operating poorly, but give our money to the organizations that do well, like the yard market, like worker cooperatives like Suma and Riverford. We haven't gone vegetarian, but we do still eat meat. But we operate. We don't eat beef, but we only eat meat within the sustainable boundaries, as published in the Lancet report, and well within those boundaries as well. Other areas we've got involved with as well is our finance. We moved all our insurance to NatureSave. We moved most of our banking to Triodos. We moved our mortgage to an ethical building society, the Coventry Building Society, for example. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but to give you a sense of all the things that we did, and the data then I captured as a result of doing all of this. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and as I said, I'm a bit geeky in this area, but here's one example of our changes. This was our change in our behaviours with respect to food and everyday consumables, groceries, the stuff you get from supermarkets. And you can see back in May 2012, we were looking at the vast majority of our purchases were coming from unethical places, over 70%. A few were coming from semi-ethical places, but we were doing virtually nothing in what I would now regard as being properly ethical. Now look at that change over the last 8 years. Look at that increase in that dark green line. We're now up to above 70% of our purchases are now what we would regard as fully ethical. And we use the ethical consumers ratings on this to know where we sit on this. And most importantly, down at the bottom there, less than 10% is in that unethical category. You can, that bit right at the end, of course, is the pandemic, which I've highlighted out. So we can put that for different factors in there. In another area, in our household commitments, we're looking at bills and the things we looked at there, the finances. Again, you can see it was almost 90% was with unethical organizations. And now, as of 2018, 2019, it's up to 80% in the ethical. There's a bit of a change in 2019 because we paid our mortgage off and cleared that entirely. So we converted a lot of our practice from very unethical behaviour. And bear in mind, back in 2012, we regard ourselves as being a little bit conscious of this sort of stuff, and we weren't doing very well at all. And being conscious of it has made a dramatic change. But of course, how much did it cost us? Because when we started buying a tin of organic tomatoes, it cost about £1.20 as opposed to 30p from Sainsbury's. So there was a real cost issue here. And as I said, I was very interested in this. So I had all this data, I had all this information because we spend everything on cards now, so it's all there. And so I could look at it all and analyze it. So this is what happened with our food and consumables costs over the years. And we were very surprised in the first year or two that we did it, that adjusting it for inflation, we actually started to see a reduction in the amount of money we were spending. And this is very interesting. And this carried on. And it got more as the years went by. So you can see what's happened there with our food and consumables. Similarly, with our household commitments, our insurances and our fuels, you can see a steady drop there. The big drop towards the end is the mortgage being paid off. But and these are all relative to what we were doing in 2011 and adjusted for inflation. So these were real savings in our money.
David, that's 5. You can finish your sentence and then you can take questions.
Okay, well, in terms of the total amount we spent, which is probably what you're most interested in, you can see that out of all of our spending, it went all the way down. And in total, since going ethical, we have saved a total of almost £55,000 from going ethical over the last 8 years. And that was an amazing surprise to us that we did that, but very interesting. And we can discuss how that came about.